Am I the asshole for telling my mom to stop playing the victim and ruining Thanksgiving? My mom and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, I learned early that everything had to be about her needs, her feelings. I was expected to manage my emotions around her, tiptoeing through every interaction to keep the peace. If something didn't go her way, she'd somehow twist the situation until she was the one hurt, the one who'd done everything right, and was never appreciated. I hated the way it made me feel, but I told myself that one day, I'd have a chance to set boundaries, to live my life without walking on eggshells. But as an adult, nothing's really changed. I still find myself anxiously checking my tone, weighing every word before I speak, just to keep her from making herself the victim. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving for the family, and I promised myself it'd be a peaceful day. My mom could come, but I'd just focus on keeping things calm. No drama. Things were fine at first. My dad was cracking jokes, everyone was catching up, and I started to think maybe this time would be different. Then, as we sat down to eat, my mom started in. First, it was the small jabs and comments about how I never call, how I'm always too busy for her. I tried to brush them off, but then she moved on to bigger things, saying how family means so much to her, but she feels like she's the only one who cares. That's when she launched into her usual spiel about how much she's sacrificed, how no one appreciates her, and how she's such a good mother who's never shown gratitude. I could feel my blood start to boil. I tried to hold my tongue, but I couldn't do it. I snapped and said, "Mom, you really need to stop playing the victim. It's exhausting, and it's why we don't get along." The room went dead silent. She sat there, shocked, before her face crumpled, and she started crying. She called me cruel, heartless, and said I'd ruined Thanksgiving. She said she'd only ever tried to love me, but I was too selfish to see it. She stormed out, and my dad followed her, giving me a sad look, like he knew this was coming but couldn't do anything about it. Now the family is completely divided. Some of my relatives have called me to say they understand, that she needed to hear it, but others think I was heartless, that I could have been kinder or more tactful. They keep saying she's my mother and that one day I'll regret speaking to her this way. But a part of me feels like I had to say it. If I didn't draw a line now, I'd be stuck in this cycle forever. I'm conflicted because I never wanted to hurt her, especially not on Thanksgiving. I just couldn't keep pretending her behavior was okay. She refuses to see her role in our issues, and I'm tired of always being the one who has to accommodate her feelings. So, am I the asshole for finally telling her the truth, even if it hurt her? Not the asshole. That's when she launched into her usual spiel about how much she's sacrificed, how no one appreciates her, and how she's such a good mother who's never shown gratitude. Ma'am, this is Thanksgiving. You seem to be looking for the opposite holiday. Not the asshole. So you hosting Thanksgiving wasn't enough for her? Nah, she needed to hear it, and as a guest in your home, she was incredibly rude and bad-mannered. Tell people that you were hosting her and she couldn't even be a gracious guest. Was it harsh? I mean, not as harsh as you could have been, but it's equally harsh for her to make your dinner party about her. I have something similar in my family. A person who is the family bomb. Everybody walks on eggshells so as not to set the bomb off. I quit doing that a while back. I set off that bomb big time and I quit walking on eggshells. Sometimes you need to be true to yourself and not worry about what other people are going to do or say. If you're not being a bully, then you have nothing to apologize for. She has a need to feel the power she gets from people kowtowing to her, and now you refuse. Continue to. Just be you. Don't go back to the toxicity of eggshells. Not the asshole. Are you Canadian? American Thanksgiving hasn't happened yet. Either way, not the asshole. Truth can be a very bitter medicine. Sorry your mom is a narcissist. Not the asshole. And to be honest, when people say you should have been more tactful, it's just a sign that they haven't made an effort to really understand how years of her behavior have impacted you. Not the asshole. Sounds like it needed to be said. Will she take it to heart eventually? I wouldn't hold your breath over it. If you haven't been over to R, Raised by Narcissists, I think you might want to post this over there. They're your people. Am I the asshole for telling my father-in-law that he's a shit father? So I, 27F, knew my husband Rowan, 29M. For a while before we even dated. We grew up in the same town and we were good friends through school, so I met a lot of his family etc. when I was a kid. We lost contact for uni but then kind of talked again after and have evidently dated and got married. When I was a kid I always kind of thought that Rowan's dad was weird. I obviously didn't have much context for it then, but I always thought it. His mum passed away when Rowan was young and he has one older brother, 40M. But obviously the age gap meant that they weren't very close for much of his childhood. I know that when Rowan was a teen he acted out, drank a lot with his friends, got into fights, didn't have good grades. I don't doubt that he was a difficult kid to raise, but I always thought that he was a good person, and still do. When we started dating, he told me about the reasons behind him acting out, that his father was always drinking her out, that he constantly told Rowan that he wasn't good enough, that he was a shit son, etc. etc. Accused him of sneaking out, unprotected sex, drugs, constantly tore apart his room looking for incriminating things. Rowan's changed a lot now and is a genuinely down-to-earth guy that would help anyone that asked. Him and his father don't really speak anymore. This was mainly due to a huge argument they had when Rowan was about 18, and his dad said that his mum would be really disappointed in him if she was still alive, that he was never going to amount to anything. Rowan told me after that he packed his bags, stayed with a friend for a while, and hasn't particularly spoken to his dad ever again. Rowan and I went back to the hometown this weekend to see my parents, and me and my mum went out to a bar for a catch-up. I immediately recognized his dad because he has a bunch of tattoos of random things on his neck and whatnot that I remember looking at as a kid, and he was standing next to me at the bar. We made eye contact and he looked surprised, and said something to the effect of, "I heard you and Rowan got married." I'm surprised, he's always been a skirt chaser. Thank God he doesn't speak to me anymore. I repeated the sentiment that I was glad they didn't speak anymore, but added that it was because he'd been a shit father. He got very defensive, saying that Rowan had been difficult to raise and whatnot, and I just turned around and left to go and sit back down with my mom. I kind of pity him, but I wish I'd just not even spoken to him and left it. Am I the asshole? He is a shit father. That wasn't an insult, just a statement of facts. To be honest, in that moment when time and possible reflection could have softened his personality, he chose to do a double whammy by insulting you and his son. That whole encounter just underscored why Rowan's walking away and going no contact with his abusive father was one of the best moves of his life. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. He provoked you. It would take a better person than me to keep quiet. In retrospect, there might have been better responses, but you are definitely not the asshole for fighting back when attacked. I'm so glad your husband recovered from that asshole. Not the asshole, but I would have gotten great joy at saying, "I'm sorry, I don't believe I know you." Not the asshole. Honestly, the better move is a simple, "Who are you?" But you earn no asshole points for quipping back. Not the asshole, not at all. Badmouthing his son even now, to his wife, shows he has no interest in a connection between them whatsoever. And it seems your husband doesn't have one either. So why not tell him your thoughts? Hey, he can unprompted and spoke disrespectfully about your husband. I say fair gamed. Would I be the asshole to ban my son's girlfriend from my house? My 52 female son, 22 male, has started bringing his girlfriend over a little over a month ago. The first time he brought her over, I took it quite formally and cooked up a feast, but it soon became obvious it's becoming a daily thing and not just a one-time formal thing. The first meeting she came quite a bit late and the food was cold by the time she came. No pardons or anything, and when we were done everyone helped to pack up. And we thought she would kind of get the notion, but since it was her first time here we didn't say anything. As for desserts, I like to do this thing. Example for cupcake, I will prepare the icing and everyone would gather and decorate their dessert, but she made it quite clear from the get-go she wasn't interested in it and stuff. So for basically the last month she's almost here daily and she would request for specific dishes with no thanks and stuff. My other son, 17 male, has also verbally called him out on her not contributing anything gently, but she said something around the lines of, "No rain, no wife duties." I don't see this as a wife duty. I would do this for my friends' hangout and everyone in my house put a hand in. My daughters, my husband and my sons. So today when my son told me that she requested a specific meat pie for dinner, I am quite done. However, I don't want to affect my relationship with my son over this. Especially since he really likes her a lot, but I'm really considering banning her from our dinners. So this girl you barely know is showing up daily, requesting specific meals but not helping with prep, setting the table, participating in food rituals, decorating desserts, helping clean up, or even saying thanks. You should tell your son she needs to learn some manners and at minimum won't be welcome to family meals until she learns some. Also, the nerve to request a specific meal. Jesus, I've been with my partner for 12 years and only ever requested something from my in-laws when they wanted to cook me like a birthday dinner and they asked me what I wanted. Have a chat with your son. Ask him if he is happy with how his girlfriend is treating the family dinners as a restaurant. Maybe set some guidelines of, max 3x times per week, must assist with washing up or setting the table. What's on the menu is the menu and you make this menu based on what's on special, in season, etc. You could even start doing a rota of kids take turns in cooking a meal once a week to set themselves up for living on their own, and this includes your son and his girlfriend making dinner one night a week. Your son is 22 and an adult. The next time he lets you know his girlfriend requests a specific meal, ask him which night they would like to cook that for the family. If the two of them are eating nightly meals with you, they can be responsible for cooking and clean up 2x per week. Not the asshole, otherwise I would make whatever you want and give them the name of a restaurant that makes that dish. Not the asshole, your son should be able to see that she's treating your place like a hotel and you like her own personal chef. My advice would be speak to your son before you ban her to try and explain why the situation has made you feel like this to try and avoid falling out with your son over it. Not the asshole on her, no ring, no duties, logic, no surname match, no seat at your table. Also, why would you cook her something completely different? This is what's for dinner, don't like it? Go home. I see you mentioned your husband. This is the time your husband steps in for someone disrespecting his wife in her home. Son or whomever, that does not occur. If she doesn't like it, she can kick rocks. If your son doesn't like it, he can follow her. If he does, he will be back when she's done with him and he learns that lesson. But no one disrespects my wife in her home, no one. And this needs to be made as clear as possible. She can play him for a fool, but it won't be anyone else in the house treated in that manner. Am I the asshole for leaving my mum home after she added herself to a trip I organized? I choose to organize a solo trip drive from my town to our family's sea house. Usually it's a 4H drive, but I decided I wanted to take many detours to test my recently bought car, making the drive around 8H long. The day before leaving, my mom, who is also in love with our sea house, heard about my plans and decided she wanted to come too. The problem is, she is the passenger driver type of person, and going 1 km/h over the limit, it's a death penalty for her. I love being alone and I like going to our second house because in this period the town is empty and quiet. My mum also liked the peace of this place, but she hates doing something that she doesn't like, and my drive would be restricted to going from A to B and I wouldn't have the same degree of freedom that one gets when being home alone. So I tried to tell her I'd rather go by myself, and after a short talk I left. She didn't look upset, but my sister said she called me asshole a few times after I left. Am I the asshole? Edit how the conversation went and extra info. My father bought a new car for himself because his V6 Busso Alfa Romeo broke down, so he gave me his old broken car and told me I could keep it if I could fix it. Took a few months, but once I was done working on the car I started planning the trip. I came back home the day before leaving. I live in a different city because I study there. My mum told me she wanted to come by car too. When I was planning the trip she told me she might reach me by train. I told her that I planned to make a few detours on twisty roads and many stops. She told me that she only wanted to do the highway. I told her I planned my trip long ago and I would have rather stick to my plans, so I proposed to pay for her train ticket, but she told me she didn't want to take the train because she needed to switch it 2 times. She traveled all her life and has a lot of experience with trains and any sorts of means of travel. That's when I said I wasn't going to change my plans because I had been looking forward to that day for so long. You could tell she was hurt, and that's why I felt guilty, even though I did all I could to get her to the beach house without completely changing my plans. I have been studying since September for a really hard exam I took on the 4th of November, and this was the only week of vacation I could take before diving back in studying for a December exam. That's why I was so determined in doing what I wanted before getting back on the books. My mum also liked the peace of this place, but she hates doing something that she doesn't like, and my drive would be restricted to going from A to B and I wouldn't have the same degree of freedom that one gets when being home alone. Next time say, "This is what I'm doing." Politely refuse to back down. And then do it. If she complains, just remind her, "This is what I said I was doing." Not the asshole. You set your parameters if she joined you and she tried to change your agenda. Sounds like the trip would have been long and tedious if you had taken her. Next time plan a trip for the two of you with straight-through drive and spend a weekend together. Not the asshole. You had your trip with a set itinerary. Your mother wanted to attend and change it. She can ask for changes, but that is completely up to you and no one else. Next time, offer to meet her at the house since she objects to how you will get there. Not the asshole. This is a pet peeve of mine. Growing up I had an aunt, who if she heard one of my parents or other aunt and uncle talking about going somewhere she would always say, "Can I go?" Or she would assume she was going and start talking about what she would be doing on that trip. It got to the point my parents and aunt and uncle wouldn't even mention there was trip being planned until it was too late for her to be added. It just made things very uncomfortable. There were times she was invited, other times not. I think she finally got it when she wasn't invited on a sister's trip. Never heard her ask again. Not the asshole. You're allowed to take some solo time to mentally recharge. Your mom is presumably a fully functioning adult who is free to also take her own trip there on her conditions. Not the asshole. I'm sorry your mother couldn't take the hint.